Well, we get to have a conversation again today with our favorite New York Police Department detective, former SWAT member, Paul, and we're going to be calling him shortly. But he has some spring food plot tip questions, and so he's got a list of questions. We're going to get him on the phone, and we're going to dive right into it. We have fun talking with Paul. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to him. One of the comments was they hoped everyone had an uncle like Paul or something like that. But
that's the first time I've had to use bleeps in a WHS video, but it was kind of
I
fun.
would imagine.
Yeah.
I probably 3 or 4 bleeps.
Yeah, good character to have.
So let's get Paul on the phone right here. We've been playing phone tag for a second, and we'll see how this conversation goes. How many times you can use the bleep button.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Hello, Jeff. How you doing?
And we got Dylan right here, too.
Hey, Paul, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, Dylan? How was your guys' Easters? Very good, I hope.
Very good.
Really
Thanks for
nice.
asking.
Nice and relaxing. I assume you got to spend some time with the grandkids?
I got one of them here right now as we speak.
Nice.
Susie's dealing with Lorenzo right now, my little 2-year-old.
Nice. Now, how many grandkids do you have?
5.
Oh, jeez. That's awesome.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, much better.
Okay. I know you'd had some questions about food plots, and so we just wanted to run through them, and we'll keep in mind Dylan's going to answer half these questions.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll try to keep it short and sweet for you guys because I know there's a lot of editing that's involved.
No, it's mostly all the 4-letter words, Paul. It's that ultimate personality.
Yeah.
That's why we like talking to you.
Listen to me. I love this.
Good.
I'll do this with you guys as often as you want to. I have
Okay.
no problem.
Right.
Well, I think our listeners and viewers like it too, so.
So Susie just yelled out from the peanut gallery, "Let's do this once a week."
Nice. Give my husband something to do.
Yeah, well, yeah. You got that right. Okay.
Okay, why don't you just fire them away?
All right. When establishing a food plot, is it or is it not essential to do a soil test?
I would say absolutely, just because, I'm always talking about time and money, but I feel like that's going to get you the most bang for your buck is getting that pH right to start with. You're going to get the best growth that way, and then also when you're fertilizing, you're going to get the best use of that if you have your pH figured out off the bat.
I'd add something else, and I know, Paul, you guys have spent a lot of physical effort in getting the lime on, and what I always encourage people is if you only have money for one or the other, you definitely have to address your lime concerns and your pH, and getting your pH corrected, because if the pH isn't corrected, you're not going to be able to use the fertilizer anyways, or the plants won't be able to utilize it, so you're just wasting money on fertilizer. And a lot of times I see it the other way around, where people are spending a lot of money on fertilizer and they're not correcting the pH, so then all those fertilizer dollars go to waste.
This year is basically the first year that I won't be using powdered lime. Like you showed me, painting the ground white.
Yes, yep.
So, that being said, I think I'm going to try this plot start that you have said good things about. The only questions I have is, A, this is the first time I'm actually using a sprayer that, it's a pull behind my 4-wheeler. Normally I just use that backpack sprayer, 4-gallon, that takes forever.
It does.
So that's the first thing. I'm not well versed on how to calibrate it, how to get it where, some people say 8 miles an hour, some people say 4 miles an hour. The slower you go, the more, the more dousing you get. So maybe you can clarify that. The liquid lime, as well as the plot boost I think you were talking about, that I'm very interested in getting involved with.
Well, the plot boost, we had some good test reps last year where we didn't use it, and the food plot growth was less down the complete strip. But it's looked at as an alternative to lime. It's not a replacement. It's not a long-term solution. You've already addressed the long-term solution, and I suspect you probably needed to add a little bit more lime than you did. And so that's where it gets into using the plot start. And we have 2.5-gallon jugs of plot start. That would be good for your 3/4 of an acre. So you just need 1 jug. And you're looking at it as a 2 to 3 month growth window, not something that's, of course, going to correct the soil for next year. So it's temporary. And in a case like yours, where you're opening up the bag and either putting it through a spreader or spreading it on the ground like I taught you how to do, those are both very labor intensive. So this is something you put through a sprayer. So as you found out.
Oh my God.
And that's what's great about it. Now, I do recommend getting a little bit larger sprayer nozzle. It's a thicker, think almost like chocolate milk, but it's a thicker type solution. And so it doesn't go through a fine mist sprayer like most of our sprayers are, and like yours is probably, which is great for Roundup, 2,4-D, Simazine, clethodim for as a grass-specific herbicide. There's a lot of chemicals you can spray through there, but when it comes to plot start, you want it a little bit larger hole, and those are easy to replace, and you can find replaces at Fleet Farm or TSC, something like that. And and Dylan, you've heard me explain this, and I know you've probably explained it to clients, but on calibrating a sprayer.
Yeah, as far as, speed, is that what you're kind of concerned with?
Yeah, how he's going to look at his new sprayer and say,
You know what it is? It's got five nozzles on it. It's a Fimco.
Okay.
It's a Fimco.
Yeah.
It's a 40-gallon tank. So it's plenty of water. See, I was told by a friend of mine who thinks he knows everything, but he knows nothing. He told me, well, the more water you use, the better it is. Don't worry about it. Make sure you have the agitator going. And I'm like, well, correct me if I'm wrong. Just by me driving to my spot with all the stuff already mixed into my tank, won't that agitate it enough? And
I would say so, especially if you're on any kind of unlevel ground. That's definitely going to agitate it enough. And as far as the spreading goes, I mean, I look at it, it's not an exact science. It's kind of, it depends on your situation, what kind of grade you're working with and what kind of turns you're working on, how your food plot is shaped that you're spraying it on. But just kind of trying to figure, okay, I have this amount that I need to spread across this whole plot. You're going based off of what that jug recommends, and then kind of figuring out your speed from there. Jeff usually recommends 7 to 8 miles an hour, and that's worked out for me really well.
Yeah, and where I get that from, Paul, is you can throw, like, unfortunately, in a lot of the chemical recommendations, they're looking at, it's a certain amount of ounces per gallon, and you can throw that right out the window because you need to learn first what the coverage rate is with that sprayer. I would recommend not going 4 miles an hour because you're going to dump a lot of moisture out, and more water isn't a good thing. You're looking at around 10 to 15 gallons of water per acre, not 5 and not 25. And so you're looking at around that coverage rate, and that makes it so you're not diluting the chemical too much and having to go over and over again and saturating the ground. But at the same time, it's not so thick that you're getting a partial kill because the droplets are so big and you're not getting good coverage. So look at that 10 to 15 gallon window per acre, and then you need to figure out your spraying rate. So what I encourage people to do is if you start out at 7 to 8 miles an hour and you're putting water through that, let's say you put 15 gallons in the tank, just see what kind of coverage rate you get and go out there and spray. And so that's a good starting point. And you might go out on your 3/4 acre food plot. You'll put 15 gallons in there. You find out that you went over that and you use 10 gallons. You still have 5 gallons in the tank. Well, now you know that it takes 10 gallons at that rate that you were traveling to cover that 3/4 of an acre. That would put you at 13, 14 pounds per acre, or 13, 14 gallons per acre. And now you have that set up where when you, like Dylan was saying, if your turns are efficient, you're not doubling up on your chemical coverage too much, then you're looking at that 10 gallons would be good for covering 3/4 of an acre. That translates into 13, 14 gallons per acre, and that's your coverage rate. Now you add your appropriate amount of chemicals. So if it's 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate, then you're cutting that down to 1.5 quarts, and you're adding it to your 10 gallons. Now you have enough to kill 3/4 of an acre. If it's 1 pint per acre, you're looking at 3/4 of a pint now per acre. So you're working backwards. You're just figuring out your coverage rate first, and then you're adding the appropriate amount of chemical to that coverage rate. and then you're considering driving 7-8 miles an hour. You're considering hitting that sweet spot of 10-15 gallons of water per acre. If it's 18 gallons, so what? If it's 9 gallons, so what? You have a pretty big gray area there, but you don't want to spread 25-30 gallons per acre, and you don't want to, you're not going to be able to get a good coverage with 5 gallons. You're going to be woefully short, even with 3/4 of an acre.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that answers my question, and that's good. All right.
Okay, what's the next one?
The next one, believe it or not, I think I jumped ahead because what I wanted to ask you about before we got involved with these fertilizer and lime was actually the weed control. I'm going to most likely be heading up to my property. I'm going to say probably, last week we had snow up there, okay?
Yeah.
Believe it or not. Yeah, so the ground is still quasi-frozen and, so I'm figuring no later than the beginning of May, last week in April, I'm kind of hoping to get up there and spray the herbicides.
That would be good. That should be really good timing.
I'm thinking, now, I remember, this is 3/4 of an acre. You remember it, Jeff.
I sure do.
You mapped it out for me. It's basically, it's round, nothing fancy. And, by the cemetery. And I just make sure I get a good killing on the weed, preparing it for, obviously, the June spreading of the buckwheat.
Yes. Now, that's a good time to address it too, because you have a newer plot, and with the newer plot, you're going to have more weed seeds that keep coming up.
Yeah.
And so I like your idea of spraying the end of April, May, and that's early enough before you plant the buckwheat that you can use 1 pint per acre of 2,4-D in there, and you combine that right with your glyphosate. The reason that's important is that it puts glyphosate is a broad-based herbicide where it will kill both grasses and broadleafs, but it doesn't. It's more experiences more a moderate kill on broadleafs. By adding the 2,4-D, 2,4-D is a broadleaf specific herbicide, then you get a greater kill on your broadleafs. And you don't want to spray that if you're going to be planting your buckwheat within 2-3 weeks, because that buckwheat can come into that 2,4-D that'll stay in the ground for 2 to 3 weeks, and it'll kill that buckwheat before it even begins to germinate, or when it germinates, it'll die quickly. So by leaving at least 4 to 5 weeks in between that 2,4-D and glyphosate combo spraying and the next time that you actually throw buckwheat on the ground, then you'll be really good off you'd be great for making sure that 2,4-D is out of the ground. And
okay, so there's no residual effect on the buckwheat, hopefully.
No, not if it's outside of 2 to 3 weeks, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So
I plan on leaving a window of at least a month from the time I kill everything up there, herbicides, to the time I actually get up there with my Earthway 2750 and rock and roll the buckwheat all over the place.
That sounds good.
Absolutely.
Paul, now that you're bringing it up, and this might be one of your questions, but on that Earthway 2750, I find it buckwheat, you're more around that 3.5 setting. It's a middle setting.
Okay.
Compared to Brassica or Switchgrass, you're more like 1.5, 1.25 on Brassica or clover, and then more like 1.5 for Switchgrass. And then, of course, when we plant 200 pounds per acre winter rye, you're opening up the Earthway spreader wide open.
Wide open.
And, Dylan's helped me do that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's filming turns into Dylan helping.
The camera usually gets put down, and I'm getting put to work.
Yeah,
I can only imagine. I know.
A lot of seeds got to hit the ground.
I think I have 4 Earthway 2750s going into this planting season, and the reason for that is I'm hoping for more hands to actually make a move and spread some seed or fertilizer or whatever we're doing.
I'll tell you what, I could be on a flight in no time. I'll help you out as much as I can.
Well, Paul, we're planning on you and Susie coming and hanging out. That'd be awesome. So we're looking forward to that, and I would say we might have a beer.
Yeah, we'll have one after another.
And then,
I want to be here for that trip.
Yeah, we'll make sure Dylan's here too. We'll make sure too that the cool thing is then we don't have to bleep out any of those 4-letter words either. So you can you can bring your whole your whole diversity and variety of 4-letter words. So, and you're safe.
Yeah, no, I know. We're pretty amped up about that.
Well, what's do you have any more food plot questions, Paul?
Of course I do.
Okay, fire away.
Right.
Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Oh, here's a question. What'd you call it again? The plot start. Okay.
Yes.
The oats, the peas, the beans. We're gonna do one side. That's the WHS blend.
Yes.
The other side is going to be the Brassica. Now, you got to keep in mind, it's 3/4 of an acre. When you divide that in half, you're only talking about 0.375.
Right.
Okay? You like that, huh? Did I not just impress you?
Good
with
man.
That? Come
That
on.
was
All right.
good.
All right.
Yeah.
So, that being said, in speaking with John Comp, he's like, you're only going to need 2 pounds of the Sweet Feast Brassica. I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, we're bombarding one side with all kinds of goodies, and the other side only 2 pounds. I mean, is there anything else that we could add to the Brassicas?
Those Brassicas are a powerhouse. I mean, from that tiny little seed comes an enormous plant, which is pretty darn cool when you think about it. And I think that it'll actually fill in really well for you, especially if you come back over it and do put urea over that side of the plot, a month or so after it germinates, right before a good rain. I think you'll be amazed at how much volume you get out of that.
And that's 75 pounds per acre of urea. But yeah, Dylan's right. That tiny seed turns into a lot, and it's several tons per acre of growth. So you're looking at, and that's why you want that candy crop on the other side, because you're getting early attraction on that side. Hopefully they leave the Brassicas alone, allow them to establish high volume. And when you're planting your beans and peas, you're crushing that buckwheat, you're planting your Brassica around that August 1st time, that's when you're adding your plot start. It has immediate, it's an immediate assist, and you want it for the entire growth season. So it's a perfect time to do that. Add your fertilizer as recommended, and then when you're following up around your rye overseeding of 200 pounds per acre with the oats and peas and beans, that's a great time to also add the urea at that 75 pounds of 4600 per acre to give your Brassica an assist. You just can't do it when the leaves are wet.
Okay.
It can burn those leaves, that nitrogen, that granular nitrogen going into the plants.
Okay, now the plot boost, is that a fertilizer? What is that?
It's a replacement, a temporary replacement, an alternative to using lime. So it's going to correct the pH enough for the plants to be able to uptake the fertilizer that you're putting down for them. So it's something you can use, and I'm using it on a lot of my plots here just because I don't want to have the resources of time spent to spread the lime, and I can't get a lime truck into those areas, so it's not easy for me to do so. And after how much I spread in the UP of Michigan, I just don't feel like spreading it much anymore if I don't have to.
So should I use a granular fertilizer?
Yes, I'd recommend you use a granular fertilizer, and it seems to be more long-acting. And so I'm using whatever the soil test recommendation is. That's what I'm applying on the ground when I plant the beans, peas, and brassicas around August 1st. And then you can follow up in early September with the urea at the 4600 rate. And that's a granular too. It's really cool about that. It's white. It's really easy to put through a 2750. You're about 3/4 of the way open at that rate, not all the way open on the earthway spreader. Let's say out of 7 or 8, I think it's about 5 that you're putting it on, 4.5 for the urea at 75 pounds per acre.
Well, generally when I start spreading the seeds, I find the sweet spot on that 2750. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want to dump too much seed like you're trying to tell me not to do in one spot. But then again, you don't want to dump too little. So
yeah, and that's why I like on the Brassica and clover, switchgrass, I like leaving the bag open because, like in your case, 2 pounds barely covers the bottom of the earthway spreader, and you can actually see that hole developing where it's going out. You can kind of guesstimate your rate as you're walking and looking at it, because the real risk with Brassica is overseeding. So you're better off going too light, say setting at 1 1/4, and it feels like it's barely coming out, and going over it 3 times than running it all out in the first strip.
Okay. Now, if need be, when should I put another dose of herbicides down on the plot, because keep in mind we're going to be putting this plot boost and all this other stuff. When should I do that in, let's just say, I don't know, August, September, or?
You would do it at the same time you're planting the brassica. So once you've smashed down the buckwheat, the weeds and any broadleafs are exposed and broken and their stems are crushed. The seeds on the ground, that's the same time you would spray 2-quart sprayer of glyphosate for any weed concern. Yeah, not 2,4-D. Yeah. Good point.
Not first time 2,4-D, second time delete the 2,4-D.
Yep. Yes, and if you have aggressive weed concerns, then when you spread your buckwheat in early June, if there's weeds, then you could hit it with 2-quart sprayer of glyphosate. But again, like Dylan was saying, you don't want to add the 2,4-D at that time because it's just going to kill the buckwheat that would germinate quickly after that. So you're doing a lot around August 1st. That's your big planting time. That's why Dylan's helping sometimes. That's why Gunnar Hansen has helped in the past. Jaden Seisha has helped, Alec Moyer, Dante, Diane. We have a lot of people helping around that time because that's the big planting time. And you're spraying plot boost, spraying chemical, herbicide, putting fertilizer on the ground. Sometimes they even wait a month and put the fertilizer out when I'm putting the urea and rye just to stagger my workload out. But you can get a lot accomplished around August 1st. So I imagine you and Susie will be really sore after that weekend.
Yeah. Believe it or not, she helps me a lot.
I know.
That's great.
I know she does. That's why Dylan said he wants to come out and try to work out. We can talk about that later. And getting that food plot established for Susie too, because you're putting a bunch of apple trees and then a food plot by Susie too, right?
I'd rather do the food plot first. I'm kind of nervous with the apple trees only because of those furry, for lack of a better word. I just don't want to go through all of that aggravation and then have them just tear it up.
Sure. Bears are real. You can deer-proof apple tree planting soft mass, but you can't bear-proof them unless it's a severely high and heavy fence. But you don't have that.
I don't. First of all, I don't have the time or the energy to get involved with building Fort Knox. I'm not going to do that. And so, what can I say?
Yeah, I
mean, I love the thought of fruit trees, and I'm not discarding the idea. It's just that I'm trying to put things into perspective, and I think the food plot would come into play a lot quicker, and it would be more efficient and beneficial to the both of us than the apple trees right now.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. I think so too, Paul. And we were talking about that today with priorities. Even just on my own property here, I have a lot of apple trees that are already growing, and I need to prune them. But when we came into the property last year, I needed to focus on stand locations, food plots, access, mock scrapes, trail cam locations, switchgrass plantings, and then this year we can start working on some of the water holes and pruning apple trees. It's just you have to do what you can have the time and resources first for that will make the most impact.
Exactly. And
definitely that food plot's going to make the most impact. The apple trees are a long-term investment towards those stand locations, but without those consistent draw of the food plots, the apple trees are just a passing snack for random deer movement that you can't count on.
Okay. One or two more questions, and then I'll let you guys go. So my next question is, you've seen these lawn rollers?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I can probably pick one up for a couple of $250 of supposedly, I could fill it up with water like you do the Packer Max. And I think the weight is anywhere, once it's filled to max, between 275 pounds and 300 pounds. I think that will knock down the buckwheat substantially. Do you?
Yes, I do. It will. I'd be lying to you to tell you any different. I like the Packer Max for the width. It's a little bit wider than the lawn rollers. It also has the grooves that can cut seed into the soil. But when you're using the buckwheat method, you can take that lawn roller and smash the buckwheat over, and it will work. The one thing that I would ask you to think about with a Packer Max is they have an ATV, UTV crimper that adds to the Packer Max, and that crimper actually can be pulled over, say, wheat or rye and crimp it over, where a lawn roller or the Packer Max itself can't crimp that over and break it like it does buckwheat. So with buckwheat, a lawn roller works great. If you wanted to use rye and wheat, and there are uses for that. Say, for example, you have a lot of summer deer concerns where they're just hammering your buckwheat, then rye or wheat would be a great option for you to be able to crimp over, and you don't have to worry about them over browsing it during the summertime. So that could be, if you have the Packer Max and you're looking at the use of a crimper someday, it's something you can add to the Packer Max and give yourself more use out of that one thing. I'm not trying to tell you to buy it. I'm just trying to, let you know that it can be a step towards something, another implement that you could purchase in the future. But lawn roller will work.
Okay,
really well.
good.
Have you used a lawn roller before?
I have
or
not,
more?
no. Just Cultipacers and the Packer Mac itself.
And then, Paul, I've used ATV tires.
Yeah, that's what
tractor tires, car tires, an ATV ramp pulled sideways, and then I've used actual McCormick old Cultipacker that someone actually stole from me a long time ago. That was a 6-footer, and it was really nice. But the Packer Max is nice because it's high quality, and because it's not made, the tank isn't made from steel, meaning the steel plates of a traditional Cultipacker is a lot cheaper than some of the old style McCormick and Brilliant Cultipackers that were $1,800 to $2,000 and more.
Yeah. What do you think of actually going up there with a weed whacker?
It would not work for the Cultipacker, or for not Cultipacker. It would not work for the buckwheat.
Okay. Okay.
It's going to be too thick. It gets tangled in the line, and that goes the same for wheat or rye as well. And I have used weed whacker, straight shaft, high quality weed whacker to mow my clover, and it takes about 2 hours per acre. That's coming from experience. You're walking slow. You're cutting about a 3-foot path, and it sounds bad, but it really isn't. You're just clipping off the top, and you can do that with a weed whacker. But when it comes to something stocky like the buckwheat, wheat, rye, you're going to end up with a tangled mess within 4 feet.
Okay. All right.
And that's based on experience.
No,
so,
I know.
unfortunately.
I know.
All this stuff, Paul, we go out to do, and then you realize it doesn't work, and then you think of the next solution and try it till it works. And so I try to bring the stuff that works to you.
I agree.
Let alone breakdowns and everything. So on top of it.
And keep them videos coming because I love them.
Oh yeah. I just want to help you be successful, Paul.
I get spoiled when I don't see one. I'm like, oh, come on now.
Hey, so tell people, I know you've recently gone at least partway through the web class. I know you told me you're on like lesson 10 out of 18, and that was only like in a couple days, and I'm like, I feel so bad for Susie, or I feel bad for you having to listen to that for that. But anyways.
I have three lessons left.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
And that's in like 5 days or a week? It's less than a week, isn't it?
I went through the first 10 in maybe 3 days.
Oh, I apologize to Susie for me. Unless you had headphones.
And I took my time.
Yeah, that's good though, because it was nice because you commented about the lessons on the way, and did you think it was helpful for you? I wanted to make.
Listen to me, absolutely. I'm not just blowing smoke here. Definitely helpful, especially. Listen, if you're into this as much as I am, then I kind of like hold on to every word you say. So to answer your question, extremely helpful. Remember I used the analogy A through Z? Well, same deal here.
Well, that's good, Paul, because that, it's like I have a 6th book coming out later in the year, and I have another web class, and between those web classes, that'll be 8, books or web classes, and you put a lot of your heart and soul and time into it, and when you're doing that, I can tell you one of the thoughts that goes through my head is failure. I don't want to put something out there that's a part of me, like my book in 2012, and then it not be well received. And so I'm always a little nervous to ask someone what they think, but we've been getting really good reviews on the web class. It made me want to do a second one. That'll actually be out May 20th. It's titled How to Plant Food Plots, and we talk about not only planting food plots.
That's the announcement.
Yeah, that's the first. Yeah, I haven't said that, have I?
Oh.
Yeah, I don't talk about it because I don't want people to beat me to the punch. Copy my title and everything. But I'll tell you what, for what we have, I think it's 27 or 28 lessons in that one. They're averaging less time per video, but it'll probably still be around that 10 to 12 mark for total hours of class time. But we've got 14 shot out of, so we're right about halfway. We have it scheduled out when they're going to be going. And so if someone wants to copy that title and get a web class out by then, more power to them, because I know what work it's taken to organize and get it into what we're doing right now.
You can shoot it and edit it before then.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. Yeah, might want to replace you, Dylan.
Yeah, exactly.
No, anything that we do, I'm the one that slows things up. Dylan, I can't believe 2:00 in the morning a video comes through. But anyways, I appreciate your feedback on that, Paul, and we'll have more to come for that too, and we'll have to.
Just so you know, any of these highfalutins that think they're out there promoting product, let me tell you something. In my opinion. They can't shine your shoes, bro. Because you know why? You're genuine, you're sincere, and you get to the point. And that's it. You can't ask more than anybody can go out there and say, "Oh yeah, look at this. This is great," and get paid a couple of $100,000 at the end of the year. It's a very highly competitive business, hunting and food plots. I get that, especially now. Everybody seems to be, it's en vogue, as they say.
Yes.
But they got nothing on you, bro. Nothing.
Well, it means a lot, Paul. I appreciate it. I know you're a no-nonsense New Yorker. So if anyone doesn't know, Paul is from New York, and he does have an accent. I don't think that accent's from North Carolina or Georgia.
No, that's my growing up in Brooklyn accent.
Nice, Paul.
Yes, the old 33rd and 3rd Avenue.
Nice. Well, we appreciate you, Paul, and we appreciate your questions. So you want to leave us with any parting questions?
Last one is, when the hell is my switchgrass going to come up?
Once the soil hits, is it 57 degrees?
Yeah.
Whatever corn germinates, it's right in that time.
Now, he's talking about emerging, though.
Oh, emerging. It'll be within
last year's.
Yeah. Oh, last
Wait a minute.
year's. I see.
Yeah.
I frost-seeded it last February.
Gotcha.
And in the summertime, there was nothing. So I'm kind of hoping that there'll be, my camera doesn't show me the switchgrass side, so I don't know what's going on up there. So.
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of times in switchgrass, it doesn't appear the year before. If there's weed concerns, it's crazy how you'll see that yellow grass this time of year just barely sticking up above the weeds.
Yeah.
And what I can tell you, the simazine on before spring green up is important, but also mowing more the end of May, and that's something you could do with a weed whip if you don't let it get to 2 feet tall. If you're actually mowing it when it's 10, 12 inches, you're topping the top 5-6 inches off of the weeds and the switchgrass. Now that those switchgrass is at that exponential growth where it could potentially keep up with the weeds. I sprayed about 4 gallons of simazine over the weekend. I don't know how many acres. I guess that'd be 4 or 5 acres that it translates into on my own property here in Minnesota. But I actually left some area alone that I didn't spray, about 1 acre in 2 sections, half acre, where I will actually mow when the weeds come up more the end of April, early May, to show the difference between mowing and spraying. And I think you'll see that it's about the same once we get into the fall. But those weeds, if you can't get up there and spray simazine, don't worry about it. You always need to, the lowest hole in the bucket is make sure you hit it with a mower if you need to. Later in the year, and that could happen even if you use simazine in the spring. So
yeah, because I basically used it for screening my blind.
Yes, on the cemetery side.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Yeah, that cemetery. We talk about a cemetery. I think people are thinking about this several acre cemetery. But would you say that's a 20-foot by 20-foot cemetery?
Tops.
Yeah.
Tops.
And I can't remember. I took a picture of some of the stones in there. What were some of the older ones? Was it 1859 or was it 1870?
1700s.
Oh,
1700s.
Wow. That's incredible.
It was a pretty cool little cemetery.
That's wild.
It's amazing. I know you guys want to go, but it's amazing. Some of the stones are hardly legible. But back in the day, when somebody passed, they would put their size, what they weighed. It was amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Is I was like, what the hell? Yeah, yeah.
I wonder.
Pretty wild.
Well, Paul, great talking to you, and I know you guys had a great Easter. Love hearing that, and we'll try to make this a regular thing because I think you have a lot of questions. It's really nice about you because you're very passionate about this and interested in it, and so of course that opens up a lot of questions, and we continue to want to make sure that you're successful. So down the road about whether it's bedding areas, hunting the weather. I'm sure there's a lot of topics we can come up with that your questions will answer the questions that a lot of our viewers and listeners have.
Yeah, well, especially right now because with this hunting, everything is in stages, you know?
Yes.
So it's like up the plot, let's spray the plot, now let's put the seeds down. Okay, now let's worry about we're hunting. Where's the wind? Which way we going? You know, listen to me. I have a lot to say. I just don't want to bore anybody because once I start boring people, then you can pull a Trump on me and say, you're fired.
Oh, Paul. Well,
Thank you very much, guys. For sharing your time.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you later, and good luck.
Take care, Paul.
Dylan, well, Jeff, it's always a pleasure. Say hello to Di and everybody for us.
Yeah, I will.
All right,
Take care, Paul.